Somewhere inside the Chase Center, behind closed doors that no camera has ever captured, a conversation has been quietly taking place. A conversation that could decide the fate of an entire franchise. A conversation about Steph Curry. For months, the basketball world has been holding its breath. Whispers, rumors, half-truths leaking out of league sources, each one hinting at the same unsettling question. Is this the beginning of the end for Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors? Because here's the thing. Curry isn't just aging. He's approaching a crossroads that every superstar eventually faces, the moment when loyalty collides head-on with legacy. Turning 39 years old next March, entering the final season of his current deal at $62 million, Curry has a decision in front of him that will define not just his final chapter, but the identity of an entire era of Warriors basketball. And just when it seemed like the tension was reaching a boiling point, a bombshell dropped. Earlier this week, a report surfaced suggesting Curry could be preparing to play hardball. The idea was simple, but explosive. Use his uncertain contract situation as leverage. Force the front office's hand. Make it clear that if the Warriors want him to stay, they'd better be ready to build something real around him, not empty promises, not more failed pursuits, but an actual contender. For a fanbase already bruised by years of near misses, that report hit like a gut punch. Because Golden State has tried. They chased LeBron James. They chased Giannis Antetokounmpo. They pursued Anthony Davis. They made a run at Kawhi Leonard. Time after time, the front office swung for the fences and came up empty. And when they finally connected, when they finally landed a genuine difference maker in Jimmy Butler, the basketball gods twisted the knife. 68 games into his Warriors' tenure, Butler's season, and potentially the team's championship window, was ripped away by a torn ACL. So when word broke that Curry might be ready to leverage his own future against the franchise that built its identity around him, it felt less like a rumor and more like a warning shot. A warning that the greatest shooter to ever live was tired of watching opportunities slip through his fingers. And then, just as the tension peaked, just as fans braced for the worst, everything changed. On Monday, a report from a trusted NBA insider cut through the noise like a lightning bolt. Steph Curry, the same man rumored to be preparing for a contract standoff, actually wants to stay. Not just wants to stay, but has mutual interest with the Warriors in hammering out a new extension. The tension didn't disappear. It transformed into something far more human. According to the report, Curry understands exactly where his franchise stands right now. He knows the word crossroads applies to Golden State just as much as it applies to him. He sees the flaws. He sees the risk. He sees a roster that has struggled to surround him with sustained star power. And yet, despite all of that, despite every failed pursuit and every heartbreaking injury, Curry is still willing to sit down and talk about extending his time in the Bay. Think about what that actually means. This isn't a young player chasing his first big contract. This is a legend, a two-time MVP, a shooter who redefined an entire generation of basketball, choosing to stay loyal even as the path forward remains uncertain. Curry could become a free agent in 2027. He could wait. He could explore his options. He could let the suspense build and use it as ammunition. Instead, sources say he wants to figure this out now, and he wants to figure it out with the Warriors. But before anyone starts celebrating too quickly, there's a catch. A complication lurking beneath the surface of this feel-good story. Curry's body is no longer the indestructible machine it once was. Last season, he appeared in just 43 games, sidelined repeatedly by a nagging knee issue that refused to fully heal. For a player who built his legacy on doing the impossible, night after night, that number is jarring. 43 games. Less than half a season for a franchise cornerstone. And yet, when he was on the floor, Curry didn't look like a fading star clinging to relevance. He looked like Curry, 26.5 points a night, nearly 5 assists a game, still capable of taking over a fourth quarter with a flurry of impossible shots that make defenders look like they are moving through wet cement. The production hasn't disappeared. The threat level hasn't dropped. But the durability question hangs over every conversation about his future like a storm cloud that refuses to move on. So now the Warriors face an impossible balancing act. Reward a legend who has given the franchise its golden era, invest heavily in a player who is approaching 40, and hope his body cooperates long enough to justify the risk. Or hesitate, negotiate cautiously, and risk fracturing a relationship that has meant everything to this franchise's identity for over a decade? Because let's not forget what Curry represents. He isn't just a walking bucket. He's the reason superstars even consider stepping into the Bay Area in the first place. His presence alone is a recruiting pitch that money can't replicate. Lose him, or damage that relationship, and the Warriors risk losing far more than a player. They risk losing their magnetic pull in a league where star power decides everything. That's why this extension conversation carries so much more weight than a typical contract negotiation. It isn't just about dollars and years. It's about trust. It's about whether the front office can convince the greatest shooter in NBA history that they still have championship ambitions worth chasing. It's about whether Curry, despite the injuries, despite the disappointments, still believes in what this team can become. For now, the storm has calmed. The hardball rumors have faded into the background, replaced by something far more reassuring. Mutual interest, a shared understanding, a willingness from both sides to figure this out together instead of walking away. Curry becomes extension eligible in August, and all signs point towards serious conversations beginning almost immediately. Golden State knows the clock is ticking. They know this may be their last real opportunity to lock in the man who built their dynasty before age, injury, or frustration make the decision for them. So as the offseason unfolds, all eyes will remain locked on the Bay. Will the Warriors finally give Curry the roster he deserves? Will his knee hold up long enough to justify a lucrative extension? And most importantly, will this partnership, one of the most iconic in modern NBA history, find a way to write one final chapter together? One thing is certain: the suspense isn't over. It's only just beginning.